Hi, this is On Imagination with the Ethical Asshole, and I am your host, the Salty Bitch. So I'm taking a moment right now to just kind of chill, and it's casual. I haven't done a casual post in a very long time. Very, very weird. Yeah, I haven't done this in a long time. I have been over at Kindle Vella all week. Last Friday, I did like 11 books uploaded in a week. Where I literally transferred all of my books from Google Docs over to Kindle Vella, and it was wonderful. I just threw them all up there. And I started this massive monstrosity of this thing. I need a flow chart. My books are so interconnected, they need a flow chart. Yes, I'm doing it. I'm going to build a flow chart to diagram out how to find my books, because they are, so an author will usually do sequential. Yeah, amateurs. Sequential. So you pick up a book series and you're like, this is book 1, and this is book 2, and this is book 3. And then after that, you start the next series. This is book 1, this is book 2, and this is book 3. And usually they all intertwine and it's all sequential. Amateurs. No, that's not what I did. I did an entire meta-heuristic, which is my new favorite word, by the way, meta-heuristic algorithm. So that I've got 3 books going all at the same time with a backstage where we all integrate into the backstage. So I've got the 3 stories, and then we all come out of the books and we do like a backstage thing in another book, and it's all part of the story. And what it is it's literally the map of my subconscious mind and my abstract. So I got Mara, who is my past, and she's over here running my past life. Well, my past lives. And then I've got me with Berrigan, and we're running out everything. Well, that's the adventures of Anna Abstract, and that's all everything in the present. And then I've got everybody over here, and that is with, who is that? With Colin and Gudrun, and they are my future. They are my future! And I've got my past, my present, and my future, and they're all running at the same time, and we're in the process of integrating. And while we're integrating, we all are called out of the story, and as we need to reconvene, we go into the 4th story. And that is where we go into the abstract, which is the same world that you see. It's my multiverse over in the, what is that called? Oh, Broken and Breaking Delusion. That's where we go. So we step into the Breaking Delusion, Broken universe, and we convene there. And we're like, what is going on over in Europe? It's really interesting. And that plot unfolds. But while that plot is unfolding, we then return to our stories and the plot continues. But we're completely well aware of each other while we're sitting there texting. So my future self is texting my past self while I'm texting my present self. And we're in a little group chat. We're all like, oh my God, did you see Berrigan's ass yesterday? And we're all talking and reconvening with these texts going on. Well, we're also looking over here in this realm. It's really fascinating and how it's all interconnected. But while that's all unfolding, we also have the nonfiction side. Well, it's all nonfiction because it's the abstract. So, and this is what I call an all genre. So it was a lot of uploading those 11 books, and then it was breaking down these and getting these books started and getting them all organized, and finally be able to orchestrate everything in my brain. And then when I got all of that out of my brain, so now it's all caught up. So I've got some that are 100% uploaded, other books where they're going out on a sequence through October. So every day something new is released. And then I've got these 4 books that are in a full flow chart going. Now, while that's going on, I also have the Daily Mouthful, and that is where I do my nonfiction articles. I also have the Brain to Books series, and that breaks down business ownership. And that's basically whenever I have an idea and I throw it over there. Now, while all of that is going on, I also have my free online courses, and I also have my YouTube channel. So it's been this massive, finally it all came together, and it was this massive conglomerate of just integrated. Finally, it's all out there. And now it's slowed way down. I took all of my old videos because I recorded a bunch of videos back in June and July, and I just never uploaded them. So I had over 40 videos that I uploaded over today. Actually, I spent today uploading those videos. And that got me rewatching old videos like, oh my God, I got to comment on this. And that made me want to go into a whole nother segment and comment. And what I love is when people comment on one of my videos, I rewatch the video. And then in most cases, I'll be inspired to do another follow-up video. So as you guys comment, that gets my attention on whatever video you want. And you guys can leave me a comment like, hey, Anna, could you elaborate on this? And I'll be all over that going, oh yeah, let's talk about that. And that's where I get really, really excited, because like it brings up and it sees what you guys are watching. And it also tells me what you guys are interested in. So we have a lot in the business side of everything. Now that's me, that's Anna's world. It's huge. And that is where I am able to just pour all of my ideas out. And it's wonderful because it's starting to take shape. Well, it's done. It has taken shape. And I had no idea I was going here to this location. It was a whole, oh my God, this is where I was going. It's fascinating. And the more I realized that this is where I was going, it allowed me to take a massive step back and say, so when I said I want to be a philosopher, this is what I had in mind. I had no idea that this is what I had in mind. And in the meantime, I'm watching how other philosophers are working, and amateurs, and just amateurs. Come on, guys. They are just writing a book, or they are just talking about theories, or they are just. And I'm like, no, I got to show you guys how to do this. So this is, but I'm the only ontologist. This is ontology. So there's philosophy, and then there's ontology, and it's a whole nother creature. Like, it's the pioneering. It's the other side of philosophy. So with philosophy, you've got 4 branches. You've got your philosophy, and that's where you walk into the world and you think it's going to be, I'm going to learn how to think today. I'm going to think about big things. Oh, you're cute. Just you wait. And you spend the first year learning about logic, learning about, the ancient Greeks, and it introduces you, get your toes wet. Because existentialism is coming. And existentialism slaps you in the face with the reality and tells you how absolutely nothing you are. Because that's exactly what existentialism does. Is it takes all the matter that is in physics and says to you, you don't matter because you are not matter. Because no one's thinking of you, therefore you are not. That's existentialism. And then you have to deal with your lack of ego. And that's the purpose of existentialism. It breaks the ego out of you. And that's really important if you want to continue in philosophy, because there is no room for ego in philosophy, which is probably why I am so intolerant of ego and opinion outside of my world. It's because I'm a philosopher. Ego. We have a lot to say about ego. Like philosophy and ego. You need to take a class on existentialism. And this is what really gets really funny, is because you've got a lot of these people out there going, oh, my feelings. Oh, and I'm going to be the first. No, I'm an insider. I've been through war and fucking back again. And then when I got out of that fucking shithole, I went, I'm going to go back just so I can learn how to do this again, just so I can get back out again, because I want to master the skill of getting through the darkness untouched. So I kept going back into the world of hell and darkness. And I became a queen of the darkness. Like I can walk through trauma and then just like shrug it off like, yeah, that's right. It's nothing. So when I say I don't give a fuck about people's feelings, I really don't give a fuck about people's feelings, because that's not my problem. That's your problem. You need to give a fuck about your feelings. The problem is people don't know how to give a fuck about their own feelings. Instead, it's like 8 billion people need to conform to my, and then you've got the next person. 8 billion people need. So now all 8 billion of us are supposed to be thinking about all 8 billion of our feelings. Or every single one of us can just worry about our own emotions. That would be great. So when you walk into the world of philosophy, your ego is completely destroyed and it's smashed and there is nothing left. You find out you are not matter and there is no such thing as an ego. God is dead. That's just the way it is. And that is the introduction to existentialism. Like it's all downhill from there, but that's good because it's all going to be uphill from there. And then you walk into the world of metaphysics. And this is where the rest of the world fucks this up. Because in the world of philosophy, you don't get to touch metaphysics until your ego is pulverized into pulp. That's when you get to touch metaphysics. You don't get to carry your ego into metaphysics. You don't get to carry your ego into metaphysics. What do you think you're doing? This is philosophy. So when you get into the other world, the non-philosophy world, and everyone's got their big egos and they're walking around in metaphysics, it's like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Walking into metaphysics with an ego? Did you skip existentialism? Of course you did, because you still have a little bit of an ego left. What the fuck do you think you're doing touching metaphysics with an ego? Holy shit. Do you have any idea what that's going to cause? I do, because I studied ego, existentialism, and metaphysics. You really should not be touching metaphysics if you've got an ego, because it's really going to change the way you look at metaphysics. So then if you get through metaphysics, no one gets through metaphysics because that's where they break you, is ontology. Ontology is the study of reality. But you don't get this far until you've completed metaphysics. The problem is, this is where everyone usually burns out. Nietzsche burned out. So you got to be better than Nietzsche to get through this shit. No one's better than Nietzsche. Like this is what we're talking about here. So now you've got these really ignorant people who still have an ego, who decided to skip existentialism and go right into metaphysics. And that's all they study now is is metaphysics without any existentialism. And that's like crap. We just set that over there. So now I'm looking at ontology, and we're breaking apart reality. We're breaking all of this down. And then when you get through ontology and you realize what is real, what is really real, and now you have a relationship with truth. And it's the cold, dead eyes of the soul, which is Mother Nature, looking back at you, going, "You really think you're something? No, you are nothing, and you are everything, and you are all at the same time." And then you realize that you belong to her, and you are her little bitch because physics said so. Now, while you're doing all of this in philosophy, you are actually studying math, logic, physics, and chemistry, and biology, and all of it. And as you're ripping all of that apart, you really, and this is the gorgeous part, this is where you start to pull it all together, and it integrates, and this is integrated mathematics. This is when you realize, oh my God, logic this whole time is just math. Yes, logic is just math. It is a different kind of math. It's called integrated mathematics. That's what logic is. And in order to understand integrated mathematics, you have to get through all of the philosophy, and you have to get all of the sciences, and then you put them all together, and it makes a cocktail. It's really pretty. And then when you get this thing together, now it changes everything that you ever thought about the world. And then you start debating on whether or not you should try to condense 30 years of education into a few minutes, or if you should try to summarize what you're seeing at the levels in which you're seeing them with vitology, where you are a vivometer. You are a vivometer, by the way. That's what you are. You are a vivometer. And a vivometer is like a barometer, except you are measuring all the science with all of your body at the same time. And you're integrating all of that energy and all of that readings. Your body literally takes up all these readings. And when you start to realize, oh, I'm just a vivometer, and you start to realize that you are just picking up all these readings, but in order to be read properly, in order to do the readings properly, you have to have a study in all of the sciences, because your math is one part of the vivometer, and your logic is one part of the vivometer. But if you have really shitty math skills, your vivometer reading is going to be really garbage. And if you have a really shitty physics, your physics is going to be really shitty. But you also have to have music, and you have to have art, and you have to have sculpting, and you have to have dance. And you also have to have reading, theater, stage, in order for the vivometer to read properly. But this is where a lot of people just skip this part. So there are supposed to be, and there are 18 different readings for your vivometer to work properly. So if you've done all 18 academic disciplines, great. Your vivometer is working to full optimum capacity. Now, I have not studied calculus yet. And as a result, I can tell where my radar is off its rocker. And it's infuriating, because when it comes to me calculating time, I can't do it because I did not study calculus yet. And now I'm going, crap, now I got to study calculus. And I know I got to study calculus. I got to study calculus because I'm not able to calculate time and duration and speed. It's really infuriating. So once I get calculus, then I'll be able to calculate that, and everything will be fine. And then I'll really be able to make accurate predictions. Really looking forward to that. So you've got to be honest with yourself about what you actually don't know. This is about your relationship with you and your lack of education. And this is really where your ego is now going to fight against that. And this is really where a lot of people have a problem. Because if you're going to get into the world of truth and logic, and this is why so many people lie to themselves, is because their ego is in the way. Like, you're dead in the water. It's like, oh, you brought your ego to the party. Well, I can't even do any work with that because the ego is here. As soon as you bring the ego to the party, if the ego were in the subconscious mind, how do I explain the ego? See, okay, let's do this. See, this is my problem. I had 7 masters when I was a kid. 3 of them were philosophers. And I went to the ancient Greek educational system. And I went through existentialism when I was 12. So let me translate that for you. My masters and Plato broke my fucking ego and threw it out the window. So here I am at 44, trying to figure out how to go back to a 12-year-old ego and try and revive it to tell you what an ego is like, when in fact, they pulverized mine when I was 12 because I studied existentialism. So let me go back. I do remember that day. Let me go back to it. I do remember that day. It was before, there's one day in particular, and I remember it. It was back when I had an ego last. I was a kid. It was before I studied existentialism. And I thought I was the greatest thing at everything. When I knew jack and shit. They used logic to show me how stupid I was. They used logic as a metric. They showed me the metric. That's what they did. It's no perspective. It was a lack of perspective. That's exactly what it was. It was a lack of perspective. It was a lack of perspective. Okay, so I am really, 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 really bad at some things. And when I'm really bad at something, I don't even know what to do with it because it's been so long since I've been bad at something. Like, it's to the point where I purposely am bad at this thing just so I can hold on to it to go, look at how bad at this I am. Just so I can remind myself. I literally keep it around for humbling purposes. Like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot. This is what it's like to be an apprentice. And that's it. That's it right there. That's it right there. You know that thing that you're really bad at? That thing that you just really suck at? Yeah, that is called humble. It's that thing that reminds you that you're a fucking idiot. That right there. And really what it is you going, oh yeah, I am an apprentice. Wow, this is hard. Yes, hard is the stage of apprenticeship. Mindless is the stage of a tradesman. And easy and mindful. Easy and mindful. You have to be consciously aware of it, and it's still easy. Easy and mindful is the master. So if you think something is hard, it's because you're an apprentice. If you are mindless about something, it's because you're a tradesman. That's not something to brag about. And if you are good at something, if you have something that's easy and you're mindful, it's because you're good. You're a master. But you're not done with the mastery until you can articulate it and simplify it so well that others can understand you easily. So it's also your ability to articulate it simply. So if you think you're good at something, how well can you explain it accurately? Now that's what we're really going for, is accuracy. Accuracy is a big deal because you have your ease in which you can do something. Now, this is where a lot of people really fuck this up, because you have something that's easy and incorrect. If it's easy and incorrect, well, now you've got a problem now, don't you? Now, if it's easy and it's accurate, oh, then you're a master. But what if it's not correct? Ooh, this is a problem. What if something is easy for you, but it's also dead wrong? This is really, really hard. I was 12 when I first found this. And no, I was 8 the first time. And then I was 12 the third time. Yeah. And I was like, all right, you guys are idiots and you're all fired. That's when I fired my teachers, is because I'm like, no, 3 logical fallacies, we're done. And that's when I hired Plato for the job. So there is a very frustrating and discouraging process. So what we're looking for is the metric to determine if what you have that's easy is if it's correct. Now, if it's correct, you're going to get 100% accuracy no matter what all the time. It's going to be 100% accurate. It's going to be 100% compatible with science. It will be. If it is accurate, then physics, math, all of it will line up. All of it. And so if something is easy for you, but you can't even prove it mathematically with physics, if there's no science, then it is inaccurate. It is 100% inaccurate, because science is literally the language of Mother Nature, and she speaks 18 different languages. So trying to figure out if what you know is accurate or incorrect is vital to whether or not you actually have a mastery. Because in one side, and this is it really, are you a master? And that's if it's accurate and it's easy. And also, are you an idiot? That's really it. If it's easy but it's incorrect, you're ignorant. This is where you're uneducated. So you've got a mastery in stupid. That's literally it. It's a mastery. You have a mastery of stupid. Isn't that interesting that the word student is stupid? Like, the two words are very similar. I really want to look up the etymology of the word stupid. To be stunned, stupefied. Being numb or astonished. Stupefied. There you go, stupefied. So, and this is really what it comes down to, is, do you have somebody who's a master, or do you have someone who's correct? Now, in order to even get to this point, you have to set aside your ego. Now, the ego person is not going to even check it. They're just not. So this is people who I want to know, oh my God, this is going to be really, this is what it comes down to, because you have people with ego and they're like, no, I don't even want to check it, because what if they were wrong? What if they find out that they're not a master of any of this? And that's really what it comes down to, is where do you stand on how accurate you are on something, or how inaccurate you are. So you've got to be really, before you even can get to this point, you've got to really sit down with your ego and have that conversation. And I this is something I can't comment on one way or the other, because I didn't go through this. I learned that this was something that was going to be a problem by the time I was 12. So I fixed it when I was 12. So I never had this problem. I made sure of it. By the time I was 12, I was triple checking all of my logical sources, because I had 3 teachers who had already given me inaccurate information, and I was able to logically prove them wrong. And I'm like, well, if I'm proving you logically incorrect at 12, you are not qualified to teach me. So I fired my teachers. So I never developed incorrect information. I remember I found some incorrect information when I was around 15, and I was pissed. I was like, why is this happening again? And that's when I really amped up my quality control. So I learned quality control when I was a child. And so I knew how to check for accurate information and quality control long before the internet showed up. So that when the internet did show up, I was prepared for the internet. Like, it wasn't a problem for me. The internet shows up and I know how to check for quality control. And I did. And because Plato teaches you that. So in order for any of this to work, you've got to have no ego, because ego will not allow you to manage your quality. Your ego is going to lower your standard. That's what it's going to do. Ego lowers your standards. Oh, does it? And your ego is not going to check for error. So you're going to have a lot of logical fallacy. And your ego is going to vaunt, which is claiming to be bigger, better, greater, without any ability to prove anything, because you have faith, without even knowing that faith is actually an element of proof. So ego is literally a death sentence of knowledge. And that's really it. And the irony is the people who have an ego problem won't even be watching this video. Ever. Ever. So you have a problem with ego if you're not even having this conversation with yourself. Like you being real about whether or not you have an ego problem. Ego, and let's dissect ego. Because there's more underneath here. There's a lot of psychology going on under here. So let's do it. Underneath ego is your security, your self-doubt. Is there anything else I need to say? That's really it. Your ego is what leads to self-doubt. It is your last line of defense for self-preservation, because if you don't have your ego, you got nothing else. That's really, really it right there. Self-preservation. Ego is pure self-preservation. And that explains why people who have that ego are so, they will fight to the death for it, because it is their last line of defense. Because you take away the ego, I wonder if any of them are using it to prevent suicide. See, again, existentialism. Oh, if you struggle with suicide, do not go to existentialism. Do not. Existentialism shows you astrophysics. Shows you just how small and insignificant you really are. You've got to have a solid sense of self to touch existentialism. And that's it right there. You have to have a solid sense of self, solid, defined self, in order to get through existentialism. Because if you don't have a solid sense of self, because that's what it does, is anything, if you have a solid sense of self, you'll pass through existentialism untouched. It'll reinforce your truth. And that's when you realize that your truth is the truth. It's the same thing when you're aligned to truth. But if you're not aligned to truth, it'll rip it right out of you. But my truth was always logic, so I was fine. Because my truth was logic. My truth was math. My truth was physics. So when I went through existentialism, come at me, what are you going to do? Then I did. I went through it and it ripped me apart. And all that was left was, no, my logic. But hey, my logic was sound, so I was good. You couldn't touch that because it's logical. So when I built my sense of self around logic, math, and physics, that's literally my identity. It's my identity. Everything I am was built around these three things. So when I went through existentialism, it stripped everything away except logic, math, and physics. Now that you understand that you are nothing. Yep, I am nothing. That's why I have logic, math, and physics, so I could be something. It rebuilt me. And then it rebuilt me properly with the 12 ethics, exactly as I needed to be in sequence. As we all are. But if you never went through existentialism, part of me really wants to do a philosophy course my way, which is Plato's way. This is real philosophy. I could do that. I really could do that. I'm really tempted to do that. Because this is, I don't talk about, see, this is the gorgeous thing about, there's ancient Greek philosophy. And then there's what they teach in university. And I don't understand that, because here's what confuses me. Plato was my teacher. So there was never a, let's talk about Platonic theory. There was no school on Plato. It was Plato teaching me. We did have a school on Socrates. So I did learn about Socrates. I learned about Socratic method. I learned about logic. I learned about the archetype. And that was it. There was nothing else. But I learned 30 years of philosophy from the 4th century BCE. So I didn't study Descartes. I did study Ayn Rand. Now, I didn't study Ayn Rand. I just read her books. I didn't study Ayn Rand. I just studied her books. I just read her books. I just read Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead and Anthem. I read 3 of her books. I read Fountainhead. I was very upset with Fountainhead because I'm like, all right, this is just like a rough draft of Atlas Shrugged. It really was a rough draft of Atlas Shrugged. It was an inadequate lower quality version of Atlas Shrugged. And I read Atlas Shrugged first. I read Anthem first. And I fell in love with it. I went, oh my God, what is this book? I love everything about this world. Then it was my 9th grade English teacher. She was one of my masters. She was brutal. But I read Anthem. And then I read Atlas Shrugged. And that changed my life. Like, that was everything. I'm like, all right, I am defined. I am Ayn Rand. I am defined. And then I read Fountainhead. And I was like, I feel like I'm reading a rough draft of Atlas Shrugged, but a lower version of it, like a lower quality. I was so upset with Fountainhead. And I tell people, don't bother with Fountainhead. Just read Atlas Shrugged. You get the final draft. You know, you get everything. There was nothing new that came out of Fountainhead. Like, I did not walk away from Fountainhead. You could tell she was like gearing up for Atlas Shrugged. She's like, oh, this is coming. I'm like, yeah, I can see that there, dear. Love that. Now, I read The Passion of Ayn Rand. I read that. And then I read Nathaniel. Yeah, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. Nathaniel Branden was her lover for 20 years. And so I know him as Nathaniel because I read The Passion of Ayn Rand. So I'm like, Nathaniel. And then I'm sitting here reading 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem with this guy named Nathaniel Branden. I'm like, I know this man. And then I realized it's Nathaniel. And I cheered. And like, I'm into like chapter 2 of the book, chapter 3. And I'm like, oh my God, Nathaniel, you made it. Yay. And then, you know, this is like 20 years later. And so when I hear about, and this is weird because then people start parroting philosophy to me. I'll be sitting there talking to people and they'll be like, oh, let's talk about that theory. Why are you talking about theories? Why are you guys talking about theories in philosophy? Did you not read ancient Greek philosophy where they taught you what you're supposed to be doing with philosophy? And that's it right there. Is you got the theory people who are wanting to talk about theory. And then you've got what you're supposed to be doing, the application. So that's it. Is I learned the application of philosophy, which is what you're supposed to be doing with it. That's what Plato taught. That's what Pythagoras taught, was we're going to show you how to apply this. And when you apply it, you reverse engineer. Like music theory. You get done with it and you're like, oh, look at this, the circle of fifths. Look what I discovered. You get done with philosophy and you're like, look at this, geometry. Isn't this cool? You get done with this and you're like, whoa, we call these numbers. Yeah, that's what you do with philosophy. That's applied philosophy. But then I sit there and talk to these other philosophers and they're just analyzing someone else's theory and expanding on somebody else's idea. And I'm like, did you guys actually learn how to apply philosophy? Because that's what I learned from Plato, is how to apply it. So there's the theoretical, I don't know what they're doing. And then there's the actual application. So Gothrundick, what he was doing was he was actually trying to do my work. He was looking for integrated mathematics, but he never found it. He was trying, and he was on my trail. Well, I guess, see, this is weird because what do you do when they're like this? Because we found the same trail, but he passed away before he finished the work, whereas I completed it. And he was trying to figure out integrated mathematics, but I don't think he wasn't a logician. And that's the problem. He was a philosopher who wasn't a logician. You have to study logic to get the integrated mathematics. And integrated mathematics is the last stage of logic, but you have to start with logic and then you get the whole science bundle. And then you get to the end of the science bundle and it comes together and then there's integrated mathematics. And you're, oh my God, this thing is amazing. And then you realize, oh, that's logic. Oh. And then you step back and you go, so that's philosophy. And then you realize that philosophy is this thing. So if I were to walk into a school and I were to teach a class on philosophy, what you're really doing is you're studying all of the academic disciplines. You walk into an English class and you are studying 1/18 of philosophy. You step into a chemistry class and you are studying another 1/18 of philosophy. You walk into a math class. Well, congratulations. Welcome to 1/18 of philosophy. You walk into a music class. Congratulations. You are in 1/18 of philosophy. Now, when you are done learning all these 18 curriculums, you put them together and then we show you what to do with them. And it's breathtaking what you can do with them. Because that's when you start making cocktails, academic cocktails, knowledge cocktails. And you start making shit with your cocktails. And that's what philosophy is. It's the integration of all of the disciplines into these 18 subgenres. And that's really it. When you wake up and you say, I want to be an astronaut, you have decided to follow one strand of philosophy without understanding how it's connected to the rest of them. And you most likely have chosen to do it the hard way. So there's the long way around where you're not integrating it. And then there's the easy way through. And this is where it gets really interesting because, well, this is why it requires mastery. This is why you require a master teacher, because a master teacher can break this down and simplify so that you get a little word that goes a long way. Or you can get, and this is really a huge thing, is a little word that goes a long way versus a lot of words that do nothing. And that's the difference between a master and a has-been. Is the master is going to give you a little word that goes a long way. But the inadequate teacher is going to give you a lot of words that do nothing. So it's going to take you 12 years to learn one subject, but in philosophy, we do 2 years to do all 18. And that's the difference. That is the difference. And when you start to realize just how to strategically put all of these together in this magnificent puzzle, and this is the best part, is when you start to study literally like a grandparent and then a descendant in the sequence, they will then overlap each other and bond so that you don't have to dissect that middle sequence to understand everything in the sequence. You don't even have to attend a class. This is what I did with my art. I studied music, dance, singing, and I studied painting and sculpting. I don't draw, but they overlapped. So now I have enough to understand, oh, that's how it fits into the puzzle. But I don't do it. I understand that it's absolutely a 4-layer translation, and that if I were to do that, it would absolutely help with my translation skills, so it would improve my communication. That's why we learn to draw, people. Because when you learn how to draw, you are working on the 4-part transition statement of communication. But in order to know that, you've got to study linguistics. And no one studies linguistics. Not like this. This is a whole nother, I got to call this linguistics something. So psychological mathematics. Psychological mathematics is the most breathtaking thing there is out there. Psychological mathematics is what you're supposed to master before you touch history. Oh, history is the last thing. History is not even on the curriculum. Because you are supposed to be so awesome at all of this that you're supposed to figure out history all on your own with clues. It's a mystery that you're supposed to put together, which is why it's history, because it's a mystery. Okay, that's not true. I just thought it was really awesome, so I'm just going to say it. Mystery with history. And it's a history mystery. And that's what you're supposed to do, is you are supposed to decode the history mystery. And that is literally your final exam. Oh my God, is that the final exam? That's what the Akashic Records are. The Akashic Records is somebody's final exam of philosophy. Going, all right, you completed the 18 academic disciplines. You've integrated them now. Congratulations. You want to pass this philosophy course? Write down all of history, forward and backwards, break the code of the mystery. And then you write it all down, all of the code using logic. What did happen, what will happen, using the ability to traject exactly what and when will happen using calculus, mathematics, and philosophy, and physics, and logic. And then you write it all out and you go, there you go. This is when it's all going to happen. This is where it's all going to happen. This is how. See, I can't tell you when any of this is going to happen. I know the milestones, but I can't tell you when those milestones are going to happen because I didn't study calculus. If I studied calculus, I'd be able to go, okay, I know what's going to happen and when. But I didn't study calculus. Not yet. I didn't study calculus because I did not understand integrated mathematics yet. And I didn't realize that summation mathematics was missing 50% of its actual knowledge from integrated mathematics, which was cut out of the educational system. So I went ahead and did something called Mathematics Demystified, which is one of my courses. And you can go through, read it, and it will actually plug in all of the illogical fallacy that has been missing and messing up summation mathematics. So when you get all of this stuff together, you start to realize how much it's amazing. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. It really is. And what infuriates me is I am just one person. What would we be like if all of us had studied like this and we all were sitting around talking about, let's talk about all the different ways the academic disciplines fit in with each other? What weird shit have you come up with? I want to know what other people would come up with, but no one has studied all of this stuff. And it's like, I need someone from the ancient Greek educational system. So, even the old Persian educational system. Well, it's the same thing as the ancient Greek educational system. But still, any one of those two would do. So, I think I just need to do a philosophy class. I think that's what I really just need to do is a philosophy class. It should start when you're 12 years old. The philosophy class should start when you're 12. How am I going to teach a class to 12-year-olds without swearing? I'm going to have to try. Oh, that'd be so amazing. I don't know. I used to teach my children philosophy. I did teach my children philosophy. Like I had philosophy classes with my kids. That was mandatory. That was something that was mandatory with my children, is you're studying philosophy. So when they were 12, all of them, it's like, we're going to talk about philosophy. You should have philosophy in your school. It's stupid that you don't. You need to know logic. You need to know philosophy. You need to know how to use your brain, because this is how you use your brain. You know, that's really what philosophy is. It is the study and the science of how to use your brain, how to think. If you're not taking a philosophy class, but it's not something you can just do. You should be learning how to think. Why are we teaching this? And the thing is, the people who are studying philosophy, I've talked to philosophers, and it's like, they're not talking about the disciplines. And I'm like, where did you go to school that you're not even talking about the disciplines? Because the philosophy is about the disciplines, and they're not talking about them. And I'm just like, what are you doing? I don't understand. And all you really need is scientific method. Well, scientific method, logic, and Socratic method. That's all you need. And then you take that knowledge and you read the great books. That's what I did. That's all I did. I read Sophie's World, studied those 3 subjects. Well, they were taught in Sophie's World. And then I read the great books. And then I applied those to the great books. That's all I did. Like, really? That's what an English teacher should be doing, is we're going to do philosophy. English teachers should become philosophers. That's really what they should be doing. Is all right. Because, oh my God, yes, an English teacher really should be a philosopher. Because if you are not applying philosophy to the great books, what are you doing? Like, all the great books is philosophy. Every single great book is a philosopher. That's what they've done. Because when you finish philosophy, you got 2 things you just got to do. You got to build your own society, and you got to build your own school. That's what we do. And then you do the history mystery. That's what you do. You do the history mystery. Yeah. So you build your own society, and you build your own school, and you do a history mystery, and you write your own version of the Akashic Records. That's all you do. We're done. Good. So yeah, this is where I'm at right now. I don't know if I'm going to do a philosophy course. I kind of want to. I don't know. Because the more I look out that's out there, the more I'm looking at it going, they're not doing the same philosophy I'm doing. Like, what are they doing? And it just, it boggles my mind. It boggles my mind so much. Like, it boggles it. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm analyzing it. That's what I'm trying to do here right now. I'm analyzing it. I'm experiencing disappointment because I expected far more from philosophers, and I'm going, why aren't they delivering? And I understand that it's because the educational system really messed up. And I'm also in the process of building an educational system. And I've already got the layout on it, figured that out. And I'm definitely going, yeah, philosophy is mandatory. But the problem is the philosophy that they need to learn is not at all the philosophy that's out there. Oh, that's where I'm going with this. Is I can say, see, if I say to somebody, you need to study English, you need to study English language. The problem is it's how to deliver each subject. It's and that's it right there is English teachers. Philosophy changes everything. It changes all of it. And that's the problem. Like, it's not just what English is, it's what philosophy does to English. It's not just what mathematics is, it's what philosophy does to it. And if you haven't studied philosophy to apply it to English, to math, to reading, you're going to miss the point entirely. And that is what's going on with the educational systems, is people are not applying the philosophy. They're not applying the right perspective. And that's it right there. It's you're reading the book, but you don't have the perspective. That's what I've been trying to say, is people will know something, but they're lacking the perspective. So every time I talk to somebody now, I'm going, where is your perspective depth? And they're just not getting it. They're like, well, this is what I was taught. Yeah, clearly. And it's absolutely absent of perspective depth. There's no perspective depth. And the worst is anyone who's like 50 and older, no, 45 and older. Those are the worst, because they'll come to me with that arrogant of, well, I got these well, great, but where's your perspective depth? And they don't even know what I'm talking about. And they're waving around their papers and credentials. And I'm like, but you don't even have perspective depth. And they don't even know what I'm talking about. And it's like, if you don't even have perspective depth, then what makes you think you're even reading that properly? And it's clear they don't have perspective depth. So perspective depth is the ability to zoom out, look at something, analyze it, and see how it's related to another thing, and then interconnect it and create something new. That's called chemistry. And then shrinking out of that, integrating it, pulling it out and going, okay, so now I've got this new chemistry thing over there, and now we're going to take A, B, C, integrate that, put it into that, create something new, and look, biology. Now let's zoom out, create something over here, and let's reverse engineer. God knows what this is, but we're going to put it in here anyway. We're going to reverse engineer this, and we're going to add this in. And look at this. We got something really weird and different now. We're going to call this psychological mathematics, because what else are we going to call it other than the fact that it's literally the psychology of mathematics? Really, math has a psychology to it. And when you start to realize that math has a psychology to it, you're going, oh, look at that, a fingerprint all over the place. And it starts to tell a different story. And that's it, really. This is storytelling. Oh, this is storytelling on a depth. This is storytelling. Because storytelling is the science of the sequence, which is all that philosophy is, the science of the sequences, which is logic. Logic, philosophy, story, they really are the same thing. They really are. So story, logic, and philosophy are really these three things just keep folding in on each other. And then you like bracket. Right now I'm in the linguistic study. So story, logic, philosophy. This is the other side of science. So biology ended. And then there's like education, parenting, justice, power, economics. And then there's storytelling. And then after storytelling, you've got logic, philosophy, linguistics. But this is not what you've heard. This is nothing new. This is very, very different, because it's now got all, imagine storytelling with biology in it. It's a different creature. So I'm looking at these things going, all right. So I'm noticing how the story, the logic, the philosophy just keep going. So now I'm looking at all the sequencing. And I'm going, interesting. Really fascinating. And now I can see how this whole thing is just branching out further and further. But it's not branching out. It's integrating in. So it's like another section of the trunk. Whereas everyone else is at the other end of all the branches, and they're at the end of the branches, and it's disintegrating. And they're like, well, I've reached the end. Dude, you went the wrong way. And I'm at the end of the trunk, and it's branching out this way. And I'm going, dude, there's like another tree under here. I'm saying when I'm looking at the bottom of the root tree. There's another tree under here. And that's really it. I had just, when you're at a tree and everyone's out on all the branches, I've climbed down the trunk and I'm in the dirt and I've discovered that the tree is reversed underground. And biology is about 8 feet off the ground where the trunk, that's biology. So now I'm like, all of this space, the night is amazing. I really need to write all this down. This would be really amazing to write all down. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And now I'm getting ready to reverse engineer this weird thing that is this unidentified type of linguistics and how it's merged with physics. So it's physics linguistics, linguistics. And that's it. I got physics linguistics here. That's what I got. Physics linguistics. That's the kind of shit I'm dealing with. Physics linguistics with logic. It's physics linguistics logic. I mean, it's all logic. This is logic, but it's physics linguistics. Logic is the order of all of this. Philosophy is the theory of all of this. Story, I guess story would be the language. So it's language, order. Oh, look at that. It's the art, it's the story, and it's the science. Oh, that's so clever. So let's try this one more time. Logic would be the order. Philosophy would be the science. And story would be the art. So you've got the art, the order, the sequence, and the science, the theory. Of all of this. And it just keeps going on forever and ever and ever. So yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. All right. I'm going to go hypothesize, think, and may the kindest of words always find you.